Hello and welcome to FFRF's Ask an Atheist. Is the video okay, Bruce? Am I in good shape? Ask an Atheist on Facebook Live. I'm Dan Barker, and I'm co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, broadcasting to you from my office, all by myself in my office here. Andrew Seidel was going to join us today, but he can't make it, so it's just me. You just got me, the co-president. And I don't know how we're going to handle the questions. Maybe, Bruce, you can tell me if we're going to do that or not. Somebody could stick a note under my door, maybe, to communicate with me. We're trying to practice social distancing here and keep everybody safe and healthy. But in the event that we can do questions from you viewers, you can just post the question right on Facebook Live. Right on Facebook, or send an email to askanatheist@ffrf.org. I can actually see those emails, so maybe send an email to askanatheist@ffrf.org, and I'll check the email, and maybe I can just read it straight from there. So today we're going to talk with the rapper Baba Brinkman, who's going to join us in just a few minutes. He's oh, there you are. Hi, Baba.
Hi, how's it going, Dan?
Oh, going good. So I see you're sheltering at home too.
Yep. I'm out here. I'm in Long Island right now.
In Long Island, okay. So staying at home with the family, staying safe. So before I give you a proper introduction, I think most of our viewers know about you. You're kind of internationally famous. But before I do that, why don't we watch one of your music videos? What about Darwin Day? Would that be a good one to start with?
Yeah, that's a pretty classic one. I put that together when I was doing some shows of my rap guide to evolution at, yes, that was in Mississippi at Mississippi State University, and the tour coincided with Darwin Day, so we laid down a track about why Darwin Day matters, and that's on campus at MSU.
So we'll give you a proper introduction and tell more about why, but let's just watch the video to get this thing started. This is called Darwin Day.
Christmas Day, I'm wrapping presents, taking out trash on garbage day. Valentine's, I'm writing cards and think about giving my heart away. Halloween, costumes, I'm dressing as a tardigrade. A tardigrade? Yeah, I'm really just all about Darwin Day. That should be a statutory holiday. If you ask me, globally, not nationally, a day off work to actually read comparative anatomy and biogeography and genetics and paleontology and some Teddy Dobzhansky. Nothing in life makes sense except in the light of evolution. So February 12th is the birthday of the first human with the solution to the mystery of existence. Why the hummingbird? Why the orchid? Why the rhinoceros? Why the pine tree? Why the wasp? And why the porpoise? Why the mass extinction of the vast majority of life forms that ever lived? What did the dinosaurs have to die for? Why, God? Why did you have to take the triceratops and leave the mosquito intact? Is that a theological paradox? No, it's not. Darwin gave us the master plan. Actually, the lack of a master plan, the tragic dance of natural selection, the struggle for existence where organisms compete but they don't recover from extinction, the tree of life connected by lines of common descent, amoebas, plants, fish, frogs, snakes, rats, hominids, and humans, diversified and adapted to habitats as widely varied as glaciers and savannas. As molecular evidence is collected, individual gaps vanish. Humans are now known to have common ancestors with bananas and cabbages, and subject to the law of averages, not every human is aware of evolution's explanatory advantages. Some of us prefer particular religious scriptures instead of scientific experts to explain how all of this works. There are many versions, from the ancient Egyptians to the Bible and Quran and the Hindu Rig Veda's inscriptions, and this presents a challenge to teachers of biology whose students believe in some of these creation stories probably. In some countries, they have established state religions which dictate curriculums, like in Saudi Arabia, for instance, but in other countries, the establishment of any one religion by the government is constitutionally prohibited. For instance, the American justice system has shown a solid preference for science education based on theories with solid evidence, and there's no alternative scientific theory to Darwin's because all the others hit miraculous calculus explanatory problems like, how does a creator create a dragonfly? Is it a mystery? You need a causal explanation to explain it scientifically, and Darwin gave us the only causal explanation in history that accounts for the origins of all biological complexity without miracles. We can study and map it and track it back to the level of deoxyribonucleic acid, but what we can't do is teach religion and call it science, because choosing among religions can be a major cause of violence. So as a practical matter, religions get equal treatment with each other, not with science. You have the right to believe it, but you don't have the right to preach it to young people with taxpayer funding, unless you teach it in comparative religion classes or something. So this is my salute to the science teachers who get it, who refuse to let a student pass a test with God did it. And this is my salute to the National Association of Biology Teachers for the consistent stand that they've taken again and again in defense of evolution against attacks from creationists who tell Bible stories in science class. And this is my salute to Charles Darwin on his birthday for his major contributions to the human mental workspace. What Darwin discovered is deeper than anyone's personal preference. I look forward to the day of its universal acceptance. Happy Darwin Day.
And that's Baba Brinkman, Darwin Day. Happy Darwin Day. That's February the 12th, isn't it? His birthday?
Yeah, that's right. That's harkening back to a more innocent age when we could walk around conferences and, shave and go outside our houses.
Yeah. When you were outdoors. Yeah, that seems like ancient history, doesn't it? So you asked, how does a designer create a dragonfly? Well, it's easy. When I was a Christian minister, I would have answered you easy. The creator of everything said, let there be dragonflies. Why is that hard for you to understand?
It's a fairly loose use of the word explanation. I think we come down to a semantic distinction about whether an explanation can be a miracle or whether it can't be. So that's, I think your organization's on board with that, and so is the RAP, where we need to define terms, but people will still make those claims. It's just a question of whether the public wants to take it seriously or not.
Well, it seems to me if you have a natural explanation on the one hand and a supernatural on the other, which one should we pick? Even if you have trouble with the natural one, we should go with that Occam's razor, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. And then if you don't like it, then the onus is on you to come up with a more plausible natural explanation. Yeah. Supernatural are kind of like cheating.
So you viewers to the show today, many of you know that Baba Brinkman, he's from Canada originally. He's a rapper. He deals with many different issues, especially with literature and with science. He wrote the rap Canterbury Tales. He's performed all over the world for such luminaries as Stephen Hawking, Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, David Attenborough, and others. His performances, besides the one you just saw, the Darwin Day, include the Rap Guide to Evolution, the Rap Guide to Human Nature, the Rap Guide to Consciousness. I'd like to see that one. Do you have to be awake to understand that one? And then you have a Rap Guide. It helps to be conscious. Rap Guide to Religion. And, I had a book come out last year about free will. You also have a Rap Guide to Free Will. Do we have a choice whether we want to watch that rap or not?
No, we have a very powerful determination to believe that we have free will, which makes the success of a rap about how we don't have free will inevitably very low. But you still got to make the argument.
You're probably familiar with what Christopher Hitchens said. Yes, I have free will. I have no choice.
Well, it's interesting. I've noticed this as well, because I was raised in a Calvinist tradition, and that was John Calvin's thing as well, right? Like, since the time, God has picked out who's saved and who's not, and all we can do is try to act in the way that makes us likely to have been predetermined to be one of the ones that'll be saved, which, was critiqued on all kinds of bases originally, from in terms of the fatalism of it, or the undermining of morality or responsibility, all that. And then it's just interesting that now neuroscientists, or a lot of them anyway, hard determinists, incompatibilists are converging on kind of a neo-Calvinist picture of how there's no free will because precursors in our neurochemistry is actually producing everything, and that can be traced to the causal chains of physics. So now we're back to scientific Calvinism.
Yeah. When I was working on my book about free will, I asked Richard Dawkins if he would want to read through it like he did with others, and he said, "No, I don't want to touch that issue. I don't want to jump in those waters." And I think there's one thing we can say for certain about free will is that all of the experts, all of the theologians, all of the philosophers, all the scientists disagree with each other. Nobody agrees with each other, no matter who you are. So I'll wait to hear your rap about free will. But did I read that you might be the only rapper in history to have your lyrics peer-reviewed by scientists?
As far as I know, that's the case. Actually, the internet makes it hard to keep up, so there may be some new ones now. I was definitely the first rapper to have my lyrics peer-reviewed. But science rap, I feel like, is a percolating phenomenon. It's not quite mainstream yet, but if you search science rap on YouTube, you'll see a lot of people doing it and collaborating and having conversations with scientists about making sure that you're presenting factually accurate information is part of the process of making science rap. Otherwise, it's not science rap. It's just your opinion rap.
How many other songwriters, rap or not, have used Theodore Dobzhansky in their lyrics?
Yeah, when I was watching that video you played just now, I realized I mispronounced his name. I said Dobzhansky because I guess the Z jumped out at me, but or I've read it more than I've heard it anyway. But as far as I know, I've never heard another rap with Teddy Dobzhansky reference dropped in it.
And of course, you can tell us what his most famous quote was.
Nothing in life makes sense except in the light of evolution was his contribution to the pantheon of quotes. But David Sloan Wilson quoted that in one of his books and said we need a revised version, which is that nothing in society or human behavior makes sense except in the light of evolution as well. And I think that's a kind of necessary extension because we're not separate from the biological world. We didn't invent some magic dust called culture that makes us untethered from our evolutionary history. It's evolution all the way down.
Yeah. And it's all natural, and there's nothing in our brains that isn't a result of natural cause and effect through time. And yet here we are asking these open-ended questions. So coincidentally, I just read like 10 days ago, I just reread the Gilgamesh Epic because I'm working on a book about worship. And I see that you wrote a rap about the Gilgamesh Epic?
Yes, I have a whole Gilgamesh rap track. It's on my Canterbury Tales remixed album. Came out in 2010, actually, so I haven't been on the Gilgamesh rap for a little while, but I recommend people check it out. There's versions on YouTube as well. And my background is comparative literature, so I did my thesis on the Canterbury Tales and did a Beowulf-based rap and a Gilgamesh one and the Finnish Kalevala, and then at a certain point, I just decided, if rap is about telling the great stories of history, the findings of science are the greatest story of all of history because, all of the stories are about who we are and where we come from and where we're going in a mythological context. And now we're finding actual fact-based answers to those same questions, which is, I find very inspiring.
And I've heard that you describe some of your work as lit hop instead of hip hop, L-I-T hop, because you're taking human literature in all times of history and reframing it, which is what art should do.
Yeah, I started with lit hop. So from 2001 to 2006 or 7, that's my main thing. I was just like doing literature translations as rap and literary themed rap. And then I did this pivot to science rap. So now lit hop's part of the repertoire and peer reviewed rap is as well. But part of the reason I got excited about making that connection is that as I'm reading literature and Chaucer and Shakespeare and William Blake and Gilgamesh and John Skelton and the whole sort of history of the language artists throughout English literature, I'm like, these are the rappers of their time. And you can say that about all cultures, that there's sort of oral, rhyming, storytelling tradition, some of which got sort of laid down in text form and come down to us now. But it's a universal phenomenon to tell stories with stylized language. And so, I kind of felt like rap is part of a literary continuum that isn't essentially different from what I was studying in my English lit classes. So that's sort of what I wrote my thesis about. And at a certain point, I was like, well, I could try to explain this to people academically, but it would be much more effective if I just rap some classics and then people can feel the connection.
Yeah, and especially Shakespeare, who was pure poetry, he probably would have enjoyed your videos. I'm sure he's not looking down from heaven right now, looking at him, but yeah.
Maybe
so
small fragments of his consciousness have embedded themselves in all of his readers and followers, and that's the form of immortality Shakespeare can achieve.
Yeah, the fact that we're talking about him right now is a form of immortality. So am I right? The Gilgamesh Epic, was that kind of like the very first written story in all histories from Assyria? There might have been fragments of things, but isn't the Gilgamesh Epic like the very first like main big story that we have in human history?
Yes. From my understanding, there are older written records, but they're mostly like clerks' records and catalogs and lists of items and storage and things like that. They're like, it was like accountant, like writing was invented for accounting purposes first, and then started to be used to capture stories. And Gilgamesh, yeah, the first one, and what an epic story as well. There's like humans against nature and industry versus the natural world, and there's like spirits that defend the natural world, from the sort of encroachment of logging and degradation of resources, and the sort of strong protector of the city-state. And there's a few Trumpian themes in there maybe too. When you think about 5,000 years ago is how long that story comes to us from. When you read it, the dramas, the concerns, the sort of natural instincts that people have, like people haven't changed, right? Culture has changed, but people have the same nature.
Well, they were us. I mean, it was our species then. And Gilgamesh was, part of his quest was he was trying to live forever. He's trying to find either eternal life or life after death. And the spoiler alert, he didn't find it. He found out that he was finite.
Yeah.
So can we listen to another
and then at
tune?
the end, he said he like works with this. He carves his name on bricks. That's the immortality that he achieves. After seeking a literal immortality, he settles for a kind of literary and cultural version of immortality.
Well, and here we are today talking about him. So that's kind of something. I mean, he's around because of what was written down. So let's listen or watch another one of your videos. There's one called, what's it about? It's called Confessions of a Skeptic.
Yeah, so part of this title is inspired by something that Darwin wrote in his early journals, where when he was first telling people about natural selection, he said species are mutable and come from a common ancestor. Although even saying that, it feels like confessing a murder. 150 years ago, there was the same exact challenge of having a naturalistic worldview, just running contrary to what people feel comfortable thinking. And I feel like skepticism, the scientific worldview today still has a similar quality, because you're kind of saying sorry, but all the stuff that you believe in that makes you feel warm and fuzzy, which doesn't have a basis in natural science, I don't think it's accurate. So, but I feel like there's also value in just saying, okay, let's get it out there. Let's confess. We can celebrate it. We don't, I believe in the scientific method. We did this, we did the video as kind of like an evangelical, like Pentecostal revival meeting, but it's everybody confessing and speaking in tongues and pronouncing they're feeling the Spirit move them, but it's the spirit of the scientific method.
Well, let's watch Confessions of a Skeptic.
I confess it, I'm a skeptic. I believe in the scientific method. I believe in reason and evidence and things being tested. I'm really not trying to be rude when I tell people I don't believe you. I believe you believe it to be true, but I wanna see some peer review. Human beings are oh so deceivable, oh so promiscuous with what's believable. I'm old-fashioned, I just wanna see if it's repeatable with a mechanism that's conceivable. Don't dismiss this as if I'm just a hater. If you make the claim, you're the instigator. I just wanna see if that claim could be replicated in the presence of a skeptical investigator. I'm not scoffing, if it's true that's awesome. And until proven, my thoughts are agnostic, open-minded, seeking truth, hoping to find it. Trying to light a candle instead of groping blindly. I confess it, I'm a skeptic. I believe in the scientific method. I believe in reason and evidence, and things being tested. But I believe in people too. I may not believe in the things you do, but I believe in you. You too can seek the truth. I don't believe in telepathy. I don't believe in chi energy. I don't believe in any kind of energy that Stephen Hawking hasn't been measuring. Physics, it can measure neutrinos. Hundreds of billions are passing through people every single second. That's something we know, but no instrument can detect chi though. We can measure it with a fake needle, acupuncture it with a placebo. And if the effect is no less feeble, that's where medicine stops and psychology goes. Belief, it's oh so powerful. That's why we need to hold it accountable. If you know, then please show me how you know. And if you don't, it's okay to say, I don't know. I confess it, I'm a skeptic. I believe in the scientific method. I believe in reason and evidence, and things being tested. But I believe in people too. I may not believe in the things you do, but I believe in you. You too can seek the truth. Excuse me for rhapsodizing, but fake news and alternative facts are rising. Quack medicine keeps on metastasizing, but there's a miracle cure. Is that surprising? It's called the scientific method. If you think a thing is true, investigate and test it. Never forget that your memory's selective. You have incentives to forget the negative. I was thinking about my friend all day, and then improbably my friend called me. But every time I thought about him and they didn't call, there was no story, so the memory dissolved. The mind plays tricks, and we can learn to spot them. Evolution even teaches us how we got them. So learn to love facts, and you might just get a passion to put that skepticism into action. I confess it, I'm a skeptic. I believe in the scientific method. I believe in reason and evidence, and things being tested. But I believe in people too. I may not believe in the things you do, but I believe in you. You too can seek the truth.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good crowd you had there. Did I recognize Michael Shermer in that crowd?
Yeah, that's right. And Michael Shermer was the one who challenged me to write that rap as well. He was like, let's see if you can grab the philosophy of skepticism in a track. So then that was actually one of his book release parties that we filmed that video at.
All right, that looked like a lot of fun. Well, you've seen a lot of people, and I think Bruce has a picture of you with some celebrities and others.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where's that, Rob?
Yeah, so that was an event that we did back in February of this year. Actually, it was at the 92Y, and it was a benefit for Hilarity for Charity, which is Seth Rogen's Alzheimer's charity. And yeah, we had Jane Krakowski and Seth Rogen and his wife Lauren Rogen Miller and Martha Stewart, and Heather Berlin is on the other side of Seth there. That's my wife. She's a neuroscientist, and it was all about how we can keep our brains creative, and how the arts and comedy are produced at a neurological level and what benefits they have. And it was all for charity. It was a great event.
And they're all cool with skepticism and the scientific method. Well, there's Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, there's a great proponent of the skeptical worldview right there. That's at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, BAM, here in New York, and that was a taping of Star Talk. They had like a whole free will, string theory, neuroscience, astrophysics, and then they got me to do like a freestyle rap summary trying to synthesize all the ideas from the chat with Brian Greene, the Elegant Universe.
Oh yeah, I'm reading his newest book right now. Brian Greene, he's brilliant. And there's some more of you presenting, celebrating around the world.
I think when I see all these pictures is nostalgia for when there were actually live events. I did like 130 live shows last year, and I was averaging 100 a year for like the last 5 years, and now it's like 0 live shows, and you don't even know when they're coming back. So just trying to make music from home now, record and make videos, because getting on stages in front of crowds is not looking too good right now.
Well, it'll come back. You just got to have faith. It'll come back.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I do. I have faith. I have faith in the scientific community. They're working on it.
So you said you do extemporaneous impromptu rap. Maybe at the end of the show, you might do a few seconds about our show, maybe?
Sure thing. Yeah, at the end of the show, if people want to write in, you said people can write in questions. People can write in suggestions for what to put in the rap. And you feel free to throw some topics at me, and I'll flip them into it.
Yeah, so right now our problem is I'm separated from the control room, and I don't know how we would get those questions to you unless somebody could stick it under the door here. But your new
people
video,
can tweet them at me too. I'm at Baba Brinkman. I'll throw my stream up and see if anything's popped up just before I wrap.
Oh, okay, that's good. So do we have your new debut video now about Stay Home?
I think we have a version of it. I was hoping we would have the final cut by now, but we have a near final cut, and I think it's close enough that it's worth sharing. But people should look to my YouTube for the actual polished, finished product. But I just thought, this is the time. Everybody's home. We need to get this message out. So this is about the epidemiology of COVID, and it's a peer-reviewed rap. I sent the lyrics to some evolutionary biologists who specialize in virology and epidemiology, Carl Bergstrom at the University of Washington and Mark Fitzpatrick at U of Toronto. And so Stay Home is all about, how we can bend the curve and the people that are getting it wrong and adding to the viral load right now.
So we'll be the first to see at least this early version of Stay Home by Baba Brinkman.
And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for I know that coronavirus is not evil. It's a mindless biological agent, a tangle of RNA in a lipid sheath that evolved to replicate itself inside of cells, just as we evolved an immune system to repel it. This I know because of science. Folks in my section like asking questions, taking measurements, testing hypotheses about how policy interventions limit the spread of infection. Natural selection, only game in town. You can find it any place a replicator is found. I'm DNA based and staycation bound now, cause there's a new replicator in town taking the crown. RNA based with the lipid shell. Soap can rip it apart, so give it hell. But just in case, update your living well. Shelter in place regardless if you're ill, stay home. Reduce transmission rates. When it's too late to contain, mitigate. When there's no universal test you can get, no contact tracing, just community spread. Stay home. Survival of the biggest introverts. Bend the curve and the surge, revenge of the nerds. Stay home, cause intuition is hollow. Y'all need to listen to the models. Stay home. It's not a hoax, not a joke. This is their new hoax. In November, gotta vote. Stay home. Let the message go viral. Instead of infection, it's so vital to stay home. Stay calm, stay sanguine. We had some bad luck, mutations in the pangolin, but I don't give a plasmid about who first bring it in. I just wanna see how administrations handle it and buy time to develop a vaccine. In a year, maybe two, optimistically, COVID-19. Nobody's immune system works. Anyone can get it from prince to prime minister. So be careful where you get your info on severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS-CoV-2. This is just the intro. You can reduce fatalities tenfold. Stay home. This This is triage, biatch. No need to see a concierge, use a kiosk. Social distance is the best shot we got. Don't let the germ win by fiat. Stay home, protected, respirator style. Or watch the curve rise up, escalator style. Stay home, stop damaging MDs and EMTs. Oxygen, they can't breathe. Stay home. It's not a joke, not a hoax, like a miracle. Register to vote, but for now, stay home. Let the message go viral instead of infection. It's so vital. Stay home. The next victim might be you. 5% are guaranteed to be in ICU. Stay home. This is Russian roulette. People jumping over people just to rush to the set. Stay home. Anti-vax activists, how about it? Are you ready for shots after this? Stay home. Let the message go viral instead of infection. It's so vital to stay home. We are totally prepared.
Woo!
Hey,
Looks
there
good.
you go. Beautiful. You put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, we've been at it for like 6 weeks. There's been cut after cut, notes after notes, but I really love how it's coming together. And I put a call out on Facebook and Twitter asking people to send me videos of themselves in quarantine doing the stay home chorus. So that's where that whole collage comes from. Pretty great to see it.
Yeah. So are you going to send this out to all the churches in the country?
I don't have a lot of churches on my mailing list, but I will certainly share it with everybody I know, and hopefully they will share it with everyone they know, and hopefully that's how it gets to the people that are not the choir and converted, but people that are tempted to go out and act like it's over when it's not over.
Yeah, I'm sure you've read about or seen these pastors, including some pastors who preach that it's all a hoax, going home and dying from this because they're continuing to have these large gatherings in their churches. But
yeah, it's a designated essential service, right?
I guess so. And that's one of the complaints we're making at FFRF. The acting director of Homeland Security has announced guidelines that clergy are essential services. He's thinking about like a chaplain in a hospital or a funeral home person, but a lot of clergy are thinking, well, the spiritual needs of the nation are just as important as their physical needs, so we are essential. And of course, we're complaining. Well, there's a letter we wrote to Chad Wolf. I think he's a hanging Chad, actually, but Chad Wolf is the acting director of Homeland Security. And we're complaining that clergy are not special. They don't have any special immunities. They're just people like anyone else. So we do have some
it's an odd one. I mean,
Lauren,
it's hard to...
Yeah.
I was just going to say that it's hard to think of anything that clergy does that couldn't be achieved with a Zoom meeting. Essential services should have something to do with the physical requirement to be on site or your job doesn't work out. But if everyone else is staying home and prevented from being able to talk to people, I know like the feeling of being at a religious service with people shoulder to shoulder is part of the buzz, but what is the essential difference between what I do performing rap in a theater and making people throw their hands up and, call and response and, name something about a religious service and how it makes people feel. That's what I'm trying to achieve with the rap concert as well. So if a clergy is essential service, then so am I.
Yeah. And besides that, anybody can claim they're clergy in this country. The government doesn't decide who's clergy or who isn't. It's the people themselves saying, I have a religion, I'm a clergy. So that opens the door to anyone who wants to just claim an exemption. It's mixing state and church. So we have a few questions, actually. Lauren was able to email me some questions that came in during the show. Scott Maddox asked, have you heard about many churches bankrupting? Have you heard about that at all, Bob?
No, I did see some people tweeting like if churches want to help out, they should be voluntarily paying taxes instead of continuing with their tax exempt designation during this. But I have not heard about that.
Well, I have read, and the Barna research has announced that church giving is way down. About a third of churches say it's almost 50% down, which is understandable. People don't have jobs, and so that's probably an economic thing. But you're right. They don't want to pay taxes, but they do. They want all the benefits of tax dollars. Here's another question.
I mean, you would know better than me. What happens when a church is insolvent? Do they have a version of Chapter 11, or is it the same as a sort of wildlife charity or any other nonprofit just folding, or how does that work?
I think it's the book of Romans, chapter 11 is what it is. Yeah, I think so. It's a business. It's a nonprofit like any other business, and they can go bankrupt if they can't pay their bills, if they can't keep working. So here's a question from Joe Stamp. That's like the word stamp with an F at the end. I'm an atheist having a discussion with a theist regarding their claim that if a layperson does not personally verify scientific claims themselves, then they are effectively employing faith in scientific claims, and that's equivalent to the theist's faith in their religious claims. What arguments would you offer about that, Baba?
Well, I would say what the science person is describing as faith is more like the benefit of the doubt, as in there are experts who have a good handle on the evidentiary base and the data, and every time you go check their facts substantively, you find that they can show their work, and you understand that they're saying things that they know and are able to tell you how they know them. So the faith is really just like a good faith benefit of the doubt, as opposed to the kind of faith that literally means belief without evidence, and not only without actual available evidence, but without the possibility of evidence. So I feel like we always have to pivot back to semantics, because, like, I'll come through, don't worry, I'm going to pick you up, have faith. Like, that's not a meaningless statement. Faith often means, in sort of everyday language, like, trust me. And I think there is a reason to trust science as a process, if not individual experts or arguments from authority. But there are different meanings of the word faith.
And scientists use the word confidence a lot. If it reaches a certain 97% confidence, they say, well, we're going to round it off for now because we're pretty confident that this is true. Although I think every scientist would admit we might be wrong. But very few believers will admit that they might be wrong in their faith.
Well, if you let in even a modicum of doubt, if there's a 1% chance you might be wrong, then there might as well be a 99% chance in the faith mindset. It's got to be absolute for it to hold, right? But yeah. I think you're right. I think one of the songs I did in my consciousness album is called Good Bayesian, and it's a sort of probabilistic way of thinking about science, and sort of makes the point, just what you said, that we're not even 100% certain that we're here right now, because it could be a simulation or the Matrix from a logical philosophical perspective, but we can put a high confidence interval, like our Bayesian estimation of the probability of us being here or of science being true can be set as high. And when you start thinking like that, it can be confusing, because suddenly your absolute certainties degrade, but relative certainties are actually a more stable thing to rest on than absolute certainties, because they weren't real in the first place.
Yeah, because like the existence of leprechauns is not 0.00%. It's very, very low. We have stories. They could exist. I mean, there's nothing stopping a leprechaun, I suppose. But most of us say the probability is so low that, come on, let's round it off. In informal speech, no, there's no leprechauns. I might be wrong, but there's no leprechauns. One more question here. This is from Donna Hauser. She asks, what would you say to people who say evolution is a religion, and that by having evolution taught in the schools, it's violating the separation of church and state? Aha.
I would say that evolution has been validated by research across so many different disciplines the predictions of evolution are borne out or they're revised, to take in the data, but it's the data that drives it. It's the strata of the geological record. It's the morphology of different organisms across different islands and biogeography. And, you could say it's a religion in the sense of like people can gather together around it and share it in belief. And that's sort of what I was satirizing in my Confessions of a Skeptic song. But it's not a religion in the sense of needing any faith-based claims for you to understand how it works or sort of use it to make sense of the world. And I think that's a distinction between evolution and religions. It's definitely a theory, a set of beliefs that all fit together. But once again, it's like, where does it ground out? It grounds out on real stuff in the world, like animal morphology and biology and microbiology and genetics. And, where does religion ground out? In the brains of the people that believe in religion. And that's about it.
Yeah. And there's no evolution churches on every corner where people get together every Sunday and say, there is no God, there is no God, I believe there's no God, I believe, there's none of that stuff going on. Passing the plate and sending missionaries. It's a worldview, a philosophy.
Well, and I think a lot of atheists would even say, I'm not absolutely certain there is no God. That's what I would say. I'm not absolutely certain there's no God. I just put the priorities very low. I would say to people, if you want to put a probability on belief in God, if you think it's 51% likely that everything is natural phenomenon, then you can call yourself an atheist rather than an agnostic, because you're, putting a higher likelihood on there being no God. I would put it more in the 99.9th percentile, but that doesn't mean absolute certainty. Another David Sloan Wilson quote comes to mind. He says, I'm prepared to describe science as a religion if you accept that it's a religion that worships factual accuracy and devises methods to seek it. Once again, you're slightly redefining what a religion is, but I kind of like that. Like, scientists have a God, and their God is figuring out the real world to the best of their ability.
And sometimes the unlikely things do happen. So we should always keep our minds open. Well, during the last presidential election, there was a 90% chance that Trump would lose the elections. It was very high, but look what happened. So sometimes those lower probabilities, if you do them enough, they're going to happen. So
divine intervention.
Yeah, that's what you would call it. So before we go, do you want to try something impromptu?
Okay, I got a beat queued up right here, and you tell me what I don't see any messages on my Twitter telling me what to rap about. So you tell me what to reference in the lyrics, and I'll drop some references in there. What should I put in?
Okay, separation of state and church.
Okay,
should be one, and then let's do evolution and religion, what we were just talking about, which is one of the questions that was asked.
All right.
And whatever comes to your mind from what we've been talking about today. Maybe your other rap's already covered. Stay home.
Okay.
So see what you got here.
And I'm just doing a couple from memory that I'll throw in here as well. Okay, here we go. So let's see if this beat comes through.
Freedom
can you hear
from
me
religion.
In the background there?
Freedom from religion too. Freedom from religion.
Okay.
All right.
Yo, check it out. I got a beat and I'm speaking. I'm telling people that, yes, you should have religious freedom. That means you can think religion is amazing and the dopest. But what you can't do is take another person and impose it. I mean, I'm speaking it out. I'm bringing these verses in. This is a freestyle. Rap is now one of those essential services. It's how it goes. Yeah, because this is an emergency. People need the rap even more than they need the clergy. People, come on. I'm just putting it in my verses. I'm just searching. Yeah, I find science kind of immersion, an immersion that's deep inside my brain. That's the denominator. I got a freestyle that I'm a kick because I'm not a hater. See what I'm saying? People can't interrupt me, and no, we are not trying to put churches up in bankruptcy. See what I'm saying? I'm just spitting it right now. showing you how I'm living in quarantine. And hopefully I won't file for Chapter 11, even though my live shows are all over rhymes that I'm kicking, even if they integrate some concepts of evolution and religion. This is the way that I speak a lyric. I'm always sparking. Okay, I will say it. My idol is Charles Darwin, but that is not idolatry. Can you follow me? I am trying to bring together evolution, religion, and anthropology. This is the way that I just use my brain. These verses that I make, inside my brain is a separation like church and state. That's the corpus callosum. Some people might have to cut it if they got epilepsy so that they don't end up having a stutter with a little bit of a seizure. I am always doing my research. This is the way that people hear it. Yeah, they hear me freak a verse. It's improvised, coming off of the top of my lips and eyes as I just try to kick a little bit of a lyric and always hypnotize. Yeah, this is the sounds that I'm making, taking it down to the basics. Big up to the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Hey, praise be to Baba. So that's quite a chance you're taking when you're doing impromptu on the spot. That's kind of like brinksmanship, brinkmanship, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's all, I first did it when I was 19 years old, and I'm 41 now, and I still get an adrenaline rush every time because you're out on the tightrope and there's no safety net. And if your brain stalls, it stalls. And that's just kind of exciting every time.
Yeah, you and Robin Williams, that's a real amazing talent there. So how can people hear all your work? Is it online somewhere?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to be the only Homo sapien on the planet with the name Baba Brinkman. So if you type it in online, it's a Twitter handle, it's the YouTube, the Facebook, and my website. And my most recent album I've released is A Rap Guide to Consciousness. But I have a couple of new tracks in production. So check the YouTube. Stay Home is about to drop, and I got a couple more coming out soon as well. So check it out. Check it out for yourself before you imagine what it's like. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today, Baba. This really has been enjoyable work, not the God work. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate that. And Dana, when I saw you on the email chain, I went and searched you in my inbox, and I found an email message from 2012. I don't know if you came across this as well, but somebody that's a follower of Freedom from Religion looped us together and said, you guys should talk. And that was right around do you remember that sort of atheist rock concert at Fort Bragg that happened around then?
Yeah, we were both there. Rock Beyond Belief. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Right. There we go. So, yeah. And I got there. That's Dawkins was there too, and I got to do my evolution rap just before he went on and spoke and stuff. It's good. Yeah. It's good. It's good to link up. It's been a while.
And I had a keyboard there to do a couple of my tunes. That was really lots of fun. Well, it takes me about 8 years to answer my emails, so that shows you something. Well, thank you so much. This has really been fun. And that's our show for today. That's our show for today. I think we're out of time. And if you watch our TV show, Free Thought Matters, the next show is going to be a film that we produced in 1988. It's called Champions of the First Amendment. It highlights people who took the separation of church and state all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. It includes Roy Torcaso, Ed Schempp, and Vashti McCollum. And we don't have time to play a clip from that. I think we're pretty much out of time today, but be sure to watch it. It'll be on our YouTube channel. You can look at Free Thought Matters on YouTube and see it there. Thank you for joining us.